This is Live from the Table, a Comedy Cellar affiliated podcast. Coming to you on Sirius XM 99 Raw Dog and on the Laugh Button Podcast Network. This is Dan Naturman. With me via Zoom, coming from his home in Westchester, I presume, is Noam Dworman, the owner of the world famous Comedy Cellar. Welcome, Noam.
That's me, Dan. I feel like Archie Bunker. What are you doing in my chair?
Well, you're not here, so I took the chair.
Right.
And there's not much you can do about it. From all the way in Ardsley.
Can you hear me well?
We hear you perfectly fine. Also here, Miss Periel Aschenbrand, author, comedian, as well as the producer, some say, of our show. Others would say she is more of a booker. But either way, here she is, Periel Aschenbrand. And of course, we have the sound engineer, the finest one in town, Miss Nicole Lyons. Behind the scenes, she doesn't say a lot, but when she does, you can be sure it's worth hearing. How's everybody?
Oh, I'm okay, Dan. All my kids have the flu, but my son's curriculum is whack.
Are you at home because of the flu? Because your kids are sick and you? I don't know.
Yeah, my kids have the flu, and I feel like I've been leaving them. My son has 104 fever. It's crazy. I need to be home with my kids.
Well, that sounds like a pretty high fever, but I guess for a kid, 104 is not as bad as it would be for an adult. This is Ben that has the 104, the youngest one.
Yeah, but they've all been sick. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, that's parenting for you, and I'm sure Periel has stories like that. She only has one kid, of course.
I want to know who takes issue with calling me the producer.
Well, we've had that discussion. Noam had some misgivings about that title for you, thinking that it maybe wasn't.
Well, Periel, you tell us what a producer. Tell us what a producer does, and I will tell you whether you qualify. Go ahead, big shot. What does a producer do?
First of all, I guess first and foremost, I deal with the bickering back and forth between the two of you and try to keep the balance of the show. So that means enough comedians to keep Dan happy and enough journalists and professors. And
that's what a producer does?
I'm not finished. Keeping the balance of the show. Yeah, that's one of the things. Then I book all of the guests.
So you're also the booker.
I am also the booker. I keep the calendar of the show. I also have to email and text message you multiple times a week to make sure that you've looked at the calendar. I research the guests. I field hundreds of emails from you.
Okay, fair enough. You convinced me. You can be a producer.
Well, no. What else might a producer do in your mind that Periel's not doing?
A producer.
I'm not finished with the list of things that I do.
Go ahead, Periel.
I also contribute handsomely to the show. Step in when people are missing. Sometimes, Noam doesn't show up. I'll step up. I think that probably in my 3 years now of doing this, other than when I'm in Israel, I probably have missed maybe one episode. So I'm here.
Well, no one's quarreling with your attendance record. But Noam, I had asked you the question: what might a producer be doing that Periel's not doing in your mind?
I think a producer. I might not know what a producer does. I thought a producer oversees the technical aspects of the show.
Well, I do liaise
decisions, but you know what, Periel, I stand corrected. You are a producer.
Anything else before Moses gets here? We're waiting on Moses Storm, up and coming comedian.
I was looking at some of the lineups for some of the other clubs, and once again, they are full of comedians whose names I don't recognize.
Well, that's easy to rectify. Just go online and do the research if you're interested.
I am interested, and
how come every time I tell you to look at a comedian that you've never heard of, you roll your eyes at me?
Well, because it's you that's doing the suggesting.
Right, except that I actually know what I'm talking about.
Well, I consider the source, but no, that's not true, Periel. I always look at people. People suggest, or I send it to Liz and ask you to look. But I'm just wondering, are there other A-list level comedians working in New York that I don't know about, or are we booking so many acts at the Comedy Cellar that other clubs are having trouble?
I think a brief perusal of everybody's got clips online, so I don't think it'll be that hard to answer your own question. Just look at the people they're using and see for yourself if you consider them to be
I'm asking you
A-list,
what
whatever
you
that
think.
is.
You don't know because you don't go to the other clubs.
I do go to the other clubs.
Oh, you do?
A little bit here and there, but it's not my place to judge other comedians and say whether they're good or not. But
Well, would you tell me if you saw a comedian who's really good that we should be booking?
yeah, of course I would.
Of course you
Of course
would.
I would, but I'm not on the lookout for it. So it's like my mind's not that. Usually when I go to other clubs, I'm not in the, for example, tonight I'm going to the comic strip actually, but I won't be in the room watching. When they tell me, Dan, you're going on next, I will go in 2 minutes before I have to go on, and the MC will be on stage and he or she will bring me up. But I typically, I'm not on the lookout. That's not my role. And I'm not really that interested in doing so. But if I happen to see a comedian that is like amazing, yeah, I get, if you're telling me, Dan, please help, please tell me, I will. Not
Yes,
that
Dan, please tell me. I want to make sure that we have that the good comedians are all working at the Cellar. Duh.
Okay. But again, you can look at them online also.
Yeah, but it's somehow not quite the same.
No, it's not quite the same. Well, in a way, it's better because you're not influenced by crowd reaction. Although I guess crowd reaction is what matters.
Crowd reaction is all I care about.
But of
I
course,
don't care if you're funny. I care if the crowd likes you. Don't you know that?
all right, fair point.
Moses is running
Am
late.
I wrong to feel that way?
No, there's no right or wrong. That's your point of view. But not every audience is the same. And sometimes you get the audience that you cultivate. So that if you book certain types of acts, you might attract the audience that likes those kinds of acts. So you're creating your own audience in a certain sort of a way. I mean, I don't know how if it works that way, but it could work that way theoretically,
Well, we really should try to figure out why the Cellar is so successful. It's something is going on. I don't know.
Well, we've been through this a million times.
Yeah, I never really.
It's to do with the quality of the show, but it's also to do with, at this point, it's just such a well-known brand name.
Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
if the shows weren't great, that wouldn't matter. People wouldn't keep coming back.
No, but assuming another club has good shows as well, the Cellar has a marketing advantage in that it's a brand name.
I heard Howard Stern. I mean, Billy Joel and Howard Stern. He was on today actually too, but it wasn't today that I heard it. And Billy Joel said, Howard, I never really thought I was that good. I think I'm good. I didn't think it was that good, but he just said, I just think my competitors are just even less not that good, or even more not that good. And I feel that way sometimes. I mean, so when I had, where's Moses, by the way?
I just said Moses is running late. He just texted me.
So when I had the Cafe Wa, and that was very, very, so, I said, I always have to remind people that my accomplishments speak for themselves. When I had the Cafe Wa, I had,
Good one, Noam. I don't know if you came up with that line.
I came up with that one.
Okay,
Yeah.
good stuff.
That's my own, the only, aphorism that I've ever written, epigram. I always have to remind people that my accomplishments speak for themselves. So in the Cafe Wa, that I really built that from scratch. And we had lines to come in. It was quite a thing, and that I felt very good about. And I did feel responsible for that. And then the Fat Black Pussycat in its heyday was also lines to come in, and I felt responsible for that too. But it was a little different. It was more of a. So you know what I did? Did I ever tell you the story? What I did about the happy hour and the Fat Black Pussycat?
I don't think so.
Oh, this is a great story, Dan.
Okay.
Hold on to your seats. People at home, you'll love this. So back in the early 2000s, there was a Yelp type site called City Search. Remember City Search?
Rings a bell.
Yeah, and they used to do these City Search. I must have told you a story. They used to do these City Search user polls, and they'd have best of lists, best this, best that, best bar, best lounge, and so I knew that a happy hour was a key to growing getting a bar business off the ground. So I wanted to win best happy hour. So we didn't have a happy hour then. So I went on City Search and I started to try to vote for myself. But very quickly I realized that you can't do it because they track your IP address. So you can only vote once a day from the same IP address. But then it clicked to me that in the days of dial-up modems, if you hung up from the dial-up modem and then reconnected, you would get a new IP. So what I did was I got 4 computers and I bought this program called Macro Express. They still make it. It's the same program I used to write the macro that I was able to order food with during COVID. So, and I got 4 computers and they were all hooked up to a modem, and I wrote a program that they would all call dial-up modems at a random interval for between 1 minute and 10 minutes. And they would log in on the computer to City Search and they would vote for the Fat Black Pussycat for best happy hour. Now, Dan, you still with me?
I got it. I mean, I don't necessarily understand the technical aspects, but you rigged it. You rigged the system. That much I got.
This is the kicker.
Yeah.
We didn't even have a happy hour at the time. Once we won best happy hour, I immediately started a happy hour at the Fat Black Pussycat and then had lines out the door. And the happy hour took off. Everything was half price. And that launched the whole bar, lifted the whole bar into a huge success for years, until I made a big one of the few big mistakes I made in my career. The happy hour was so busy and it was understaffed, and Heidi, the waitress, convinced me not to put more waitresses on, and I knew it was a bad idea, and I allowed it to go downhill. I had so many other things I was doing at the time. I had the wand. I was just too busy to really attend to it. But and then the crowd turned a little bit bad, and then we suffered from that for many years. But I'll never do that again. It was all Heidi's fault. But
yeah.
Huh?
But now there is no Fat Black Pussycat. It's now converted into a comedy club space.
Yeah, it all worked out now. But I mean, what you cannot imagine how good I felt about myself. Like I used computer programming and 4 computers, and they're all calling up, and there's no. And and having said that, we also won best live music at the Cafe Wa, but that was legit. I did not vote for myself at the Cafe Wa. So, but yeah, we won best happy hour, and then after that, the Fat Black Pussycat legitimately won best lounge years later. But first City Search thing, yeah, it was.
We have. Is that somebody rang? I guess that's Moses is here.
I hope we don't have
better late than never. Or maybe he's not here.
Now
have you got any reviews on
you blame a producer for?
Well, I can't blame a producer. Sometimes people don't show up on time. I mean, she can't control Moses's comings and going.
You'd like to blame me for that, but in fact, it's not.
No, have you gotten any Yelp reviews on the music that you do now Monday nights at the Olive Tree? Is that like Yelpable or something? Or?
Oh, I don't know. I can't. I don't look at the Yelp reviews, but I know that Monday night is packed. Right, it's packed before you even go on.
Yeah, it's. Hey, Moses is here. He's got. I guess Moses has a motorcycle because he's got his helmet.
There's a Danny Kaye thing. Moses supposes.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Please welcome American writer, actor, and comedian who's appeared in film, television, and radio. This is just from Wikipedia. From Kalamazoo, Michigan, Moses Storm is here.
I don't know why the emphasis is on American.
Well, that's just what I read in the
I know.
Wikipedia.
Moses supposes his toes are roses, but Moses supposes erroneously. Moses supposes his toes aren't roses, as Moses supposes his toes is to be. You know this, Moses?
I just know the dance, the full choreography. And I will be doing it on
Moses Storm is a new Comedy Cellar comic. I guess he's been here about a year. No, even less, I think.
Even less. July. Still very green. Still nervous to perform here. Still.
Well, don't be nervous. Noam told us before you got here that he really likes you, and so I think you're pretty well.
Well, I mean, Moses, this is the thing. Dan wanted you very badly on the podcast. I was happy to have you on, of course, but Dan said something he's never said about any other comic in my life with him. Dan thinks you're going to be a big star.
You've never said that?
Well, I have said that. I think I said that about Jordan Jensen. I said I didn't say she's going to be a big star. I think I said I think there's a reasonable chance. I think Moses. Yes, I think Moses. I think Moses has what it takes. I don't know if those are my exact words, but Moses is young. He's good looking. He's got a good backstory, and he's already making some noise. So putting those things together, that was my conclusion. I can't predict that with certainty, of course.
Right, but you don't say it to a lot of people. So it means
I
a
don't
lot.
say it to him.
I've never heard him say it to anybody, and he did, and he also said it supportively. He didn't say it like you would normally say that. That
I didn't say it at all.
The LA way, where
I'm
it's like,
still
yeah,
doing
this guy's
something.
gonna be okay.
I don't think I said it at all. I think I emailed. So you couldn't tell what tone of voice I was using because I was emailing.
Let's pull up the.
I was gritting my teeth as I was doing so.
It's all in italics.
But and Moses is, but his backstory is that he grew up
in a cult, in an unsuccessful cult. Because I think the follow-up question is people are always like, well, which one? Is there a Netflix special about it? But no, it never worked out. They never had any followers.
So it was just you guys?
There was 3 families in the cult total. And my mom's uncle, so my great uncle is the one that actually started it. He's maybe the head of this religion church. And then my mom got my dad involved in it. And then there was a 3rd family that was in Texas. And each of us lived in a bus, like a Greyhound bus, not a tour bus, but a bus that they tried to convert into an RV. It was never the quality of what you would see on HGTV, where there's like cabinetry work and there's working plumbing. It was just like a hellhole, just a hot diesel tube. And we would travel state to state, city to city, and street preach. So I'll be on the street as young as 2, by my earliest memories, like with large neon signs, screaming hellfire at people and witnessing for God.
And the government never stepped in and said, well, this kid needs to be put in a foster home?
No, I mean, that's kind of the bummer about it, is that no one cared. FBI didn't care. Like, they never got big enough to ever be a problem. If any official, like, yeah, well, no one's going along with that. So we were never a nuisance.
But you were living in a bus with no plumbing, preaching on the street. That didn't attract the attention of the authorities at all?
People would yell at us on the street, never authorities, but people would be like, how could you do this to your kids? When we would, I guess, protest or street preach at spring break, people would pee in bottles and throw it at us. People like, why aren't your kids in school? Because also I've never been to school in my life. And a few times CPS would come a little bit later on.
CPS?
But that's
Child Protective
Services.
Yeah, but it was less about the cult stuff. And it's like when the cult kind of fell apart and my parents went their separate ways. And then my mom was very stressed with these 5 kids and no child support. And then CPS became a regular fixture in our life.
But you never lived in a foster home, though. You lived with your parents.
That was the thing. That was the
or your mother.
My siblings would always talk about running away when we were sentient enough to be like, well, this is obviously not right. Forget the ideology. Every time we're in Walmart, every time we're anywhere, people are yelling at us and saying that this is not right. And it's never going well. And my older brother, I remember him pulling us aside and be like, we can't run away because then we're going to go into foster homes and no one's going to adopt 5 kids. We won't get to stay together. So if we just ride it out, if we just hang around, then we can at least stay together. Was the idea.
Yeah, I would like more information. What makes it a cult? It was obviously a Christian based cult.
It was a mix of Judaism and Catholicism. I think extreme beliefs. It was very anti-government, anti-school, anti-establishment. I didn't go to a hospital until I was 20. We were all home births, and it was focused around the Book of Revelation. So heavy doomsday cult. This is all going to be over. Why would you need to get a good job? Why would you need to save money? Why would you need to teach your kids how to read if this is all going to be over in like 45 minutes?
But now we usually think of cults being led by some kind of cynical phony like L. Ron Hubbard or Jim what's his name?
Jones of Jonestown.
Jim Jones, yeah, where the guy at the top is profiting in some way, either with money or sexually or whatever it is from his followers. But you're describing this was a sincere belief thing.
I definitely think that the cult leader, and usually they're much more charismatic than my great uncle. He was pretty off-putting. If you saw him in just as a comic, you wouldn't be rooting for him on stage. And I think intimidation was probably his best thing, but he wasn't hot, for lack of a better term. And a lot of cult leaders they're at least like offbeat, like Jared Leto hot. Or at least it's like, oh, I get it. I get why you would want approval from someone that is attractive. He wasn't attractive, short, fat, balding man, thick Michigan accent. And he was a college football star. When he got hurt, that's when he found God. That's when God told him that you are the true prophet. So I if I had to guess, you'd be like, oh, you're just trying to continue this identity. You still want to be a star. You know, your football career is over. You're not going to go to the NFL with the torn ACL. So maybe being the leader of this cult would be an identity. It could feed your ego.
So you never you were homeschooled.
That's even generous, because I know people that are homeschooled and they
get a decent So you're saying you can't read?
I learned. Eventually I learned.
You read better than our dear friend Phil Hanley?
Yes, a little bit better, but I'm also dyslexic and dysgraphic. So those two on top of no education, because there's great programs if you are dyslexic. There's like Sylvan Learning Center that if you can do it right, but it was all those three things put together.
Now, obviously, this kind of street preaching is a great training ground for being a performer, correct?
Yeah. I mean, there was never a problem. I mean, writing always needed work, but there was never a problem getting on stage and projecting. It's a lot less nerves, because at least it feels like audiences, especially here, are rooting for you to do well, and they want it to be a good show. And I think when you come in and you have big neon signs that say like, you're headed for hell.
Jeez.
Yeah, God saves, the world is going to burn. Like you're already starting from a negative standpoint.
And now, do you believe in God still?
No, I don't. I don't have anything. I think the closest thing, if I could choose, it would be Judaism. Just because, I agree with the tenets, but I'm never fully on board at something, and it's pretty embarrassing, because I do wish I had something.
Have you been?
Well, me and Noam don't have anything. I mean, we well, we're Jewish by birth, but we don't believe in it.
But you're culturally Jewish.
Yes, but no, but Moses could,
And
if he wants to. Moses, you're not allowed to say that. But if you want to be culturally something, you can certainly do it.
Yeah.
You don't have to believe in it. You want to come over for Noam's house for Seder next year? You're welcome.
Yeah.
I think what he's saying.
You can read the 4 questions. I mean,
yeah.
Or you can. I don't know if you can read the 4 questions.
I think you're saying that you crave some spirituality in your life. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I totally understand why why religion works for them. It gives answers for the unanswerable.
Well, unfortunately, the answer is this. We're doomed.
We're doomed, and there's nothing?
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the answer.
Have you been reading my family's signs?
But your family believed that that we're doomed, but that we're going someplace after.
Yes.
So that's where we part ways. I believe we're just plain doomed.
So it's just dust. You're nothing.
That's what I believe. Yes, I think that is a likely correct.
I don't believe that.
Periel believes, there's energy, and energy has to go somewhere.
Right, because energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So
yeah, your atoms will live on, if that's any consolation.
But your what?
But your consciousness, likely will not.
Right.
But you're only 35 years old, so it's not so bad for you.
32. I've been burning the candle at both ends. Do you have?
Hopefully, you have some time left. But
do you have like a death wishes? Meaning like, oh,
bucket
I'm gonna be cremated. I want to.
Oh, like a final. I don't have any final. What do they call that? Final arrangements in your will? No. What are
wishes?
I don't have a will. I don't have a will.
Affairs in order.
But no, in the will. It's called something where you. Well, Noam, you have a will, so I assume are they putting you in a box or burning you up?
Oh, I don't think it's in my will, but I would like to be buried. Well, when my father died, Ava, my father's wife, bought me a plot next to him.
Oh God.
So I have a plot, but now I have my family and my wife, so I don't know. It's just another thing that I'm going to fight with my wife about.
Well, if you don't believe in anything, why do you need to be buried next to your family? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I don't think he does.
If I don't believe in anything, nothing matters. I agree with you. That but nevertheless, somehow I do care. I do care somehow. I can't say it matters, but I do care.
You don't have these like this laundry list for people that people like, I want to be cremated. I want you to take my ashes to this spot in Hawaii and spread it here. Right? Because it's like, well, why you're not going to be around for that. So why would it matter?
Do you want to?
No, that doesn't matter.
It wouldn't matter, but just the idea of being buried to me is creepy. Not that I'll know, but
Yeah.
everything creepy about death is burial related. Coffins, skeletons, tombstones. It's
Right.
all the cremation. You don't have to deal with any of that.
Right.
Well, you're not dealing with any of it anyway because you're not going to be here.
That's correct. But I'm in thinking about it. What makes me uneasy is burial.
Yeah. And the fact that your body's just rotting, and there's this fear that what if you came to life real quick and then you went died? And the reason people are dead is because they're buried.
I think the
Sure.
embalming is what freaks me out. I mean, the Jews don't do this. You just go right into a wooden box. But when you have like the open coffin and they like
Oh,
shoot you
yeah.
full of like formaldehyde and put makeup on you.
They did that for my grandpa, and I was like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
The grandpa that was the cult leader.
No,
No, his great
just my
uncle.
grandpa. He's
No.
actually the cult leader's brother, and
Oh,
they
okay.
did not talk their entire lives. And I was really nervous because this happened maybe 2 years ago. I was nervous that the cult leader was going to show up to honor his dead brother, but he didn't.
Did you have a sense growing up that this really sucks, or were you like, oh, well, this is my life, and I don't have a sense one way or the other?
No, it was definitely this sucks all the time, because there's yelling, there's abuse, there's just struggle of poverty, seeing my parents frustrated that it's never working out, we're always moving. We would get evicted from places, and they'd be like, well, it was God's will that we got evicted. Now that's why we're going to Panama City, Florida. And from an early age, I had that thought that I think everyone comes to where you're like, oh, my parents, they don't got this.
So how poor were you? Can you give us an example of just how dire the poverty was?
Yeah. So our main food source, because food stamps really wouldn't cover what we would dumpster dive for food. I would say, without exaggerating, 80% of our food came from the grocery store dumpster. So you go back in the grocery store, whatever they throw out that's expired or is about to expire, you take that, and hopefully there's something in there that's not rotten, but maybe the expiration date is past. So it's usually just like a lot of one thing. It's either all fried chicken, or it's all beets, or it's all Hostess cupcakes. So some great things.
Yeah, as a kid, you must have enjoyed the Hostess cupcake.
Yeah, there was.
We weren't allowed to eat those. You see, in my house. So who had it tougher?
Right? Were you allowed to eat trash?
I never asked.
How old were you? So you always hear stories about people grew up very poor. We were so poor, we didn't know. We were happy. We didn't know anything.
It doesn't sound like that's the case here.
No. How old were you before you were cognizant of the fact that the way you were growing up was not okay?
Well, I was aware that we were poor pretty early on because my mom would constantly get caught shoplifting from multiple Walmarts, like to the point where there was honestly her Polaroid in Walmarts, and she would go back and steal at that same one. And then I would be sitting with her when she gets pulled to the manager's office and they're waiting on the cops. And then so she would give this whole sob story, really like how I learned how to perform is from her. And she'd be like, I'm a single mom. I have all these kids. You can't do this to me. And I'm just trying to make ends meet. We are so poor. And then she would lay out the facts. So I think that is really how I found out we were that poor. And I think a lot of
she wasn't bullshitting. What she was saying was true, correct?
Yeah, she would play it up. She would definitely perform. Definitely like if you get a speeding ticket.
Well, also when you were watching TV and you were like, wait a minute, these people have
we were not allowed to watch TV.
Okay.
We did somehow see the OJ chase. We had a TV, but yeah, it was only for religious tapes because my great uncle would do keyboard music, and he would sing the sermons sometimes with like a talk sing. And
where were you in the 5 kids?
Second to youngest. So my other siblings, like, things did not work out, or I think they had it a little bit harder than I did, and they're having a harder time coping with it in adulthood. And I just got lucky just to see them make mistakes, see what it was like if you ran away, see what it'd be like if you tried all the drugs in the world and it not working out. So just by the benefit of the lineup, I was able to avoid some things.
And when were you on your own? When did you go out on your own and start making your own money and escape from all that?
The cult fell apart around 2001 because it was connected to the Andrea Yates story. Andrea Yates believed that God was got to save her kids if she killed her kids. And that was a pretty big trial, and it put a lot of heat on the religion and on the cult. So everyone was laying low at that point. Like, we're not going to go out and yell at people for this. And
Andrew Yates drowned five children. Was that the story? It was all over the
Yeah.
news, right?
Yeah, because God told her to do it.
That's right.
And which is something I always heard growing up, is that you're born pure, and then as you get older, your sin nature corrupts you. So yeah, that was hard to swallow. I was like, but there was a little part of me that was like jealous of those kids. I was like, oh fuck, they did it. And then 2001, same time my parents' marriage has already fallen apart. This another blow of this very national trial. It was the biggest story of 2001 before the biggest story of 2001. And then our cult leader came back into the picture after not seeing him, laying low for 5 years. He came back into the picture and essentially gaslit my mom and was like, what are you doing? Why are you living this way? It's so poor. You guys need to get jobs in the workforce. So then I got a job at a grocery store because they had a trash compactor, which means like she couldn't dumpster dive at that one. It'd be so humiliating. Be like, oh my God, your mom's out back. So I kept applying at this one store because they had a trash compactor. And then I was around kids my age for the first time. It was like 16, 17.
Wow.
But I still fully believed in the cult, even though we had talked about running away, even though it was hard, even though it was like, your parents are crazy. I 100% believed in their definition of God. I believed at that point I was going to hell. I was still writing letters to God and apologizing and trying not to masturbate, And then I fell in love with this girl at the grocery store who was just a very intelligent person. She's now a double PhD. And just hearing what I believed said back to me by her, someone I respected, and you're horny, you're a teen, and just a really smart and sweet person. Just hearing what I believed said out loud, and her absorbing that information was enough to deprogram me.
Wow.
And that was enough. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's all bullshit. Yeah.
I have another question. I hope you don't mind this. It's just fascinating. So you grew up very, very poor and deprived. Like, you have like vivid recollections, like the first time you went to a nice restaurant, like these things were so delayed for you, right?
Yeah. I actually got
So-
fired from my first restaurant job because we did not spend time in restaurants growing up. So I didn't understand the rotation of servers and how they're like, oh, you can't just seat everyone over there. So they did all the training, and it was Mexicali. It was on Ventura. It's like when I finally moved out here, and everyone's hot there. And everyone's dating. It's like one of those places where, and it was very busy with and then there's a lot of like TV celebrities there. And my very first week, I got fired. I did the training, I'd finished it, did my first shift, and I just couldn't understand that you would need to spread people out, that there's an order to just the plates, the check coming out.
You just wrote like everything at
Yeah.
once.
buddy, what are you, an idiot? Have you ever been to a restaurant before?
We
Oh,
would
actually,
go,
sir.
but it was so conditional. I remember we went to a Marie Calendar, and the most
Oh my
humiliating
God.
experience of my life. It was my younger sister's birthday. This is like a sad Norman Rockwell painting. And the server came out, and we're all sitting there. There's the 6 of us sitting down at one table, and we order one piece of cornbread with the candle in it. And the server keeps going up to like, sure you don't want anything? And no, I do not want anything. No, I'm stuffed. Like, we're just gonna get that. And the server's so bummed that this 6 top is now.
I mean, you should see
filled.
Noam when he brings his kids out to dinner.
Yeah.
The contrast I'm saying is rather striking.
He's just
Between
like
the way his kids are being raised and the way you were. But
I mean, that's what I would do now. If I had kids, I would fill up the table.
Moses, you have a girlfriend now?
I do. Yeah.
I was just thinking that this isn't like, you cannot not close a deal with a story like this. Like,
Right. It's all bullshit. I had it so hard, but there is something that would make me feel better.
I mean, like, what are we going to talk about? Oh, don't worry, I got this.
the fact that he looks like a young Johnny Depp is not hurting.
It's yeah, it's a Kirkland brand Johnny Depp. This is a jet.
Kirkland is like the Costco brand.
Definitely fell off.
Be that as it may.
But yes, I think that the most harmful part of growing up that way is my adulthood now. It is, you are right, Norm, that is, I think, like, oh, it's a weird thing your parents do. You kind of just accept it. But something like having a girlfriend where you really do have to open up, you really do have to be vulnerable, you have to show them who you are, you're not performing on stage, then all the religious dogma, the isolation, because if you're not going to school, you're isolated from kids your age. All that stuff is manifesting. So I think, as I would say, it's harder now being out and alone than it was just the day-to-day in it.
Have you done like severe therapy, like PTSD? Like, have you gone through any of that?
No.
Oh, you might
And
want to, you might want to.
I've done some therapy, but not enough. And it's a little embarrassing to say that. But yeah,
I've noticed comics are all talking about therapy now.
Yeah.
20 years ago, nobody talked about being in therapy. Now every comic's got a therapy joke. What's that? Maybe Woody might have done it, but I'm just noticing, like, just watching comics here, many of them have therapy jokes. It's become sort of in now to talk about
right. And depression is
yeah, maybe popular. Gary Goldman opened the door. I don't know. That maybe Gary Goldman was the one that did it, but everybody seems to be talking about mental illness.
He went from state abbreviations to mental illness.
Nobody followed suit on the state abbreviations, but everybody seems to be following him at the mental illness thing.
Well, Al LaBelle too. Al LaBelle has that documentary, Mentally Al.
Such a great time.
Yeah, although Al LaBelle, the Mentally Al documentary doesn't really get into like clinical mental illness. It's just, you just see him as kind of the quirky, weird guy.
Yes, I guess
it was a trend in specials for maybe the past 5 years, is that you needed to exploit your tragedy. Whatever the one thing that happened, you needed to, maybe exploit's a harsh word, but really lean into that. You couldn't just do well-written jokes like you can do here. Your special had to have this moment, this great tragedy. And I think the good comedians,
well, many did, not everyone, but
no, but it was a trend as far as like what's being written about. If you look at just like what's on Twitter and what are articles being written about, it was mainly leaning.
Well, Hannah Gadsby in particular,
that was one of them. Which
that
I think
was the most extreme example.
Was fine, but it was like everyone trying to copy that or be like, oh, that's just a one-woman show. We'll show you how to do it. I think that's where we maybe fell short a little bit, because the focus was the tragedy and not just is it funny?
Well, I mean, it's, Noam and I have a similar opinion about the Gadsby special on the net, I guess it was called. Yeah, not that funny, but certainly engaging.
It's her. It was honest to her. It was great, or them. And yeah, I think it was the people that got jealous of Hannah's success that kind of tried to do their own thing, this watered down version of it. And then those were some of the worst specials ever, because you can't just bump people out. You have to dig people out. You can say something that has levity, something that's hard, but you have to have the skill as a comic. This is why I don't talk about the murders on stage, because I'm just not talented enough as a comedian right now to dig people out.
What murders? What?
In our cult, the way it fell apart.
Oh, okay.
I'm not talented enough to pull off child murder, but I'm trying.
I agree with you about Hannah Gadsby. We've talked about it before, but it's always, I really didn't like the hate that she got from a lot of the comedians. I don't know if it was jealousy, because I know the comedians tend to be also very technical snobs. Like they think that comedy should be done this way, and they don't like props, and they don't like this, and they were very, very important to them that to define whether it was or wasn't comedy, as opposed to just appreciating the fact that she did something that touched a nerve, that bubbled up to a wide audience without any hype or Madison Avenue promotion, whatever it was. This was basically a word of mouth thing. And it's always been my opinion, and in any, whether it comes music or movie or whatever it is, that you have to respect that, when something catches on, like, it comes to my mind for some reason, like the first Batman movie with Michael Keaton, there was so much hype about it. And then there was covers of Newsweek and Time, and everybody's like, oh, this is so good. It's so good. But it hasn't stood the test of time at all. Like it just really wasn't that good. But somehow you can kind of pull the wool over sometimes with enough.
Now, Noam, as a club owner, if a comic goes on stage and doesn't kill, doesn't get huge laughs, are you willing to entertain the possibility that maybe that comic is engaging nonetheless? It's harder to judge as a comedy club owner somebody that's just engaging but not killing with big laughs.
Oh yeah, I could now I can absolutely judge that, and I'm actually, I don't want to say names. There's some comedians at the club who I feel that way about. If I go in the room and I find myself, really drawn in and listening to every word and not bored, and I'm a very easily bored person. I've never been to a Broadway show that I wish hadn't ended at the intermission. I really don't have a lot of interest in a lot of things, but if somebody can hold my attention for 10 or 15, then I will likely want to use that person. I mean, if they go for laughs and there's no response from the audience, then they're striking out. That's awkward. Then
I will mention a name because he's a big enough name. Is Al Franken. I felt that way about Al Franken. Would come here. Do you mind if I mention the name? No.
No, don't mention Al Franken. Go ahead. No, it's too late. It's fine. I don't care about Al
I felt that way about Al Franken. He wasn't annihilating the way a lot of comedians annihilate, the way the huge laughs that a lot of comedians will get. I haven't seen him here in a while, but I was like, this is really interesting. How often do you have a U.S. senator on stage? First of all, talking about going to Washington, his initial experiences, meeting, the senators. His experience in Congress. I thought, wow, this is pretty interesting. I think the audience probably would agree, though I couldn't necessarily tell because it wasn't howls that I'd like to get on stage. I like to hear those howls.
You want to hear my opinion of the Al Franken thing or
yeah, well, of course we do.
So my opinion was this: the first time he came down, I thought it was exactly what you said, and I think part of that was because he hadn't been on stage for so long, and he had his pace was, let's say his pace was a 10. He's a little bit faster. He has a nervous, like, staccato-ness to him. He was hyped for Al Franken, and there was a certain electricity to it. I went back 3 weeks later, and if his pace had been a 10, he was now a 7.5. He was a little bit slower, a little bit less energetic, a little bit less snappy. And I no longer felt that same energy in the room. It got a little bit lax, a little bit loose. Not to the point where we stopped using him, but
you couldn't stop using him, though. He was too big a name.
No, we didn't stop using him. Well, we can't stop using him. Well, no, we could, but I still thought on the whole it was a plus to have a U.S. senator, have a celebrity, and he is funny. The guy's a talented guy, but it wasn't. There was something about when he first came, when his own mood was like super alert, that I thought was better. So,
you think it's maybe
as a club owner, I have to just sense that. That's magic in the air. You can't prove it one way or another, right?
Yeah. Do you think it's the time that he took off from it? If you're not working, like, I know if you take 2 days off, you feel a little wonky getting back on stage.
I know, like, as a musician, there's a like, you learn a song and you do it, and first couple times you go, and then it clicks, and then the next like 10 times you do it, it's just awesome. And then it loses the novelty of a new song in some way. I'm sure it's the same way with material.
Yes.
Exactly. And then imperceptibly, somehow, you don't enjoy doing it as much as you did. And lo and behold, the audience then stops enjoying it as much as they did previously. And you can't prove why. I suppose if you A/B recordings, you might be able to hear this breaks a little harder. Like you could look and you could probably find the differences, but they're not apparent to you when you're performing, except that in some way, like I would tell the guys in my band, like, you can't do a sad song if you can't conjure sadness in yourself, and you can't do a happy song if you're not feeling happy. And that's just the way it is. And you can't perform that set of yours unless you're really enjoying it. And it's hard to keep enjoying it if you've done it 100 times, right? So yes, it's really deep, this stuff, but it's real.
Yeah, you definitely feel that there's something that it could be your strongest bit or your closer, whatever. People like it, and they even will even ask for it at some shows. Of like, you gonna do this one? And if you just don't have the same excitement,
Yeah.
it could feel it. You could hit it exactly right. You could be as loud as quiet, but there is a feeling to it. There is some sort of energy.
Well, I wonder if, like, I mean, obviously it's the same with big stars. You know, when Billy Joel is doing Piano Man, he must be thinking to himself, "Oh, good Christ, this again."
Right.
But I don't know if it's perceptible on a conscious level to the audience, but it's hard to imagine. He's been doing that song for 50 years, not quite 50 years, but 40 years, maybe 50.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
at
sure,
this
I'm sure
point,
it's not what it was.
At this point, he's got to be just utterly sick of it.
Well, listen, when you're super famous like Billy Joel, you have one advantage, which is the crowd is they don't need you to give up to create the energy in them. They're so fucking hyped. There's so much energy in Madison Square Garden for Billy Joel that he can get carried away in that. It's like, if your sexual partner is really, really into it, you might get into it too. But I'm sure that he's not the Billy Joel that he once was with those old songs. I'm sure there's something, or maybe.
Well, sometimes you can't even hear the song. I mean, that's an interesting point. Sometimes you can't even hear the song because the audience is so loud at these concerts. When he's singing an old favorite.
Yeah. So I tell you this related story just because it's kind of related. And then we'll go back to Moses. So my friend Sasha, who sings with the Rolling Stones, who sings with us on Monday nights now. I asked her, I said, do the Rolling Stones still rehearse? I mean, we're doing Satisfaction for 50 years. Like, what's going on? More than 50 years. And she says to me, rehearse. She says they rehearse. Keith Richards records the rehearsals. Then he goes back and listens to the recordings. And then he goes to the Stones and he gives them notes on what they're doing and not doing correctly. So that comes through. If you could still keep that interest in the quality of it, I think then that helps motivate you to. I
don't know if Richards is the exception necessarily or the rule regarding bands of that stature, but I mean, Richard, from what I hear, he is like that. He's a real band leader.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Paul McCartney's probably the same way. I mean, there's a reason these guys are on top of the world for 50, 60 years. That's not luck. These are special talents.
Yeah, it feels like Seinfeld has that. I don't know him at all, but just observing from the outside, it feels like he has that obsession with work and listening to things back and shaving down words, and not just like, oh, hope this goes well. And it's so much about the written joke.
Well, probably itself. We don't see a lot of Seinfeld around these parts. He never comes here.
Dan, I
never. He doesn't come. He
doesn't come off.
Yeah.
What were you about to say, Perry?
I was about to say that I know that I'm generally not authorized to do this, but you guys are glossing over the fact that Moses threw out child murders.
Yeah, I think he was referring to. I think he was referring to that not in his own family, but to that case.
Yeah, that case. What she was connected to the same cult. That was the third family.
But that was your cult, though.
Yeah,
that was the third family in your cult.
So they tried to bring my great uncle in. The defense was trying to call him in to say that this mentally ill woman who's also struggling with postpartum depression did it because of his influence, and they subpoenaed his tapes and his sermons that were on these cassettes. So that's when he got in touch with us to get our story straight. He's like, if they're reaching out, just like, don't say anything. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you were that directly involved. Maybe I misheard you, but I thought it was just that the heat was on cults in general after that.
No, it was just because of that. It was one of the angles that the defense took, but I don't think it's widely reported on that she was a part of a failing cult, which is like, it's not beneficial now, because now I have to describe what this cult is, and I have to get people on board to even care. Like,
now, this is obviously a book deal waiting to happen. Our dear friend that I mentioned earlier, Phil Hanley, got a pretty good check, I think, for his book about dyslexia. That's nothing compared to your shit.
Yeah.
So why don't you have a book deal? I don't know if you want a book deal.
I gotta learn how to write.
Oh, you'll find somebody to do
that
for you, but somebody can do that for you.
I can help you.
Periel can do it. She's a great typist. She does 60 words a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great. I just feel really insecure about anything that's school related or left brain related. I think
but somebody can do that for you. The hardest part is the story. Now you've got to pitch it to a publishing. I don't know what your financial situation is, but I think I could get you $100,000 advance.
That I trust that coming from you.
Yeah, I
And
don't know what the hell I'm
he
talking about,
he
but
would
that,
only take 20%.
no,
Yeah, it takes 20%.
I'm not gonna get you anything.
Come on, you scrape a little off the
I'm not going
top.
to get you anything, but I think whoever your manager is or whoever, somebody that works with you is,
Yeah.
could probably score that kind of money. I think.
And
I don't know.
movie, obviously.
I think I'm
I
ready.
want one thing at a time. If the book sells well, then we'll deal with the movie.
Let's get him his advance, and then we'll talk. Then we'll talk. I think the whole thing is, I think now for the first time, is why I'm talking about it publicly. I'm ready to take it on because I didn't want to just be my story. Didn't want it to be just the sad thing, and then you're getting
Or a one-person show. Talk to Bigley about producing you.
Yeah. Oh, that would be great. That I would get really excited
Or
about.
Judd Apatow. Judd Apatow told us directly from his own mouth that he's more about the story than about the funny. Now you're funny too, but that's the reason he gave Gary Gulman a special. When Gary Gulman got a special, I actually emailed him. I said, hey, I wouldn't mind a special because Judd Apatow produced it.
Yeah.
And Judd was like, well, my plate is full right now. But Judd said that the reason he produced Gary special because Gary had a great story about being depressed, about having, I think, electroshock therapy.
That's right.
Amy Schumer, he liked her story years ago when he signed on with Trainwreck. He would surely like your story. I don't know if you've spoken to him or not, but
no. And I mean, that's completely on me. It's the first time I feel comfortable talking about it.
Anyway, I feel more confident than ever that Moses has got some great things ahead of him. I can't guarantee stardom, but I do think
$100,000 you guarantee.
I can't
hold
guarantee
you
you
to
that
that.
either. But I think I think that at least 50.
That's severe cut. It's a 50% cut. Listen, this kid never went to school. He's not gonna know.
Now-
We're gonna get you $1,000, kid.
Now, are you have one of these savior complex? We were talking to Justin McKinney here a few weeks ago, and his family is in pretty bad shape too. And he made some money early on, and he was so desperate to help out his family that he gambled. He didn't gamble. He sort of gambled. He put it all into these risky stocks because he wanted to save his family, and he lost everything. And now he's back and he's doing okay. But is your family like you feel like you need to be the savior of the family?
Yes. Sometimes, yeah. I don't do stocks, but I do send them money often. And I have no safety net. There's no backup plan if everything goes to shit tomorrow.
Well, the movie.
I have the movie, and then we have the
and the
guaranteed.
What I'm
100.
trying to say is be careful when you
Yeah.
get too anxious to save your family and you act imprudently.
It's getting worse because I notice that sometimes I'll take on relationships, and it's not the current situation, current girlfriend, but people that maybe do have a lot of problems are a little out there because I don't have to focus on my own problems. If they're more messed up, if I can save them, then I feel good about myself. And it's evidence that I've dug myself out of this hole of being this weird religious cult kid, no friends, hate and just strife. It feels like I'm out if I have not just I can afford a meal, but I can afford to give it to someone else. So I noticed a pretty bad pattern of trying to do that or looking for people that I could take care of.
Yeah, but right, okay.
We have to get him a really good Jewish therapist.
Yeah.
That's what.
Well, they cost $200 an hour.
Yeah, well, they're on a sliding scale.
Some aren't.
And
That'd be worth it.
yeah.
Well, I don't know. It sounds like he's fairly well adjusted. Of course, I've only spoken to him for this hour, but he may not need therapy. Some people can actually get through those kinds of horrible situations and still be in decent shape.
Have you ever been to
psychologically.
therapy?
Of course I have, yeah.
And did you find it helpful?
Not overwhelmingly, no.
Really? No, Noam, look at the look on his face.
Well, Noam's a therapy skeptic. No,
He doesn't believe in therapy.
he's a skeptic.
No, I feel like I got bored in it. I didn't know it's like dating. We have to find multiple ones, but I tried 3 and I was like, I guess therapy just doesn't work.
No,
Like,
no.
3 people, but and it feels like this huge thing I have to take on. You have to find the right
It's
person.
a big.
Sometimes they're just like, this is good and conducive because it's a show, it's entertainment. But sometimes you feel like they ask questions just to get
Right. well-
entertained. Yeah, and then how'd she do it? She drowned the kids one by one or 2 at a time?
Right.
Well, I always felt that like I was entertaining in therapy, and I thought, well, why should I be paying the same money as somebody who's boring you for an hour when I'm
Right.
telling you great stories?
Right?
My
you know.
friend had a therapist who fell asleep while she was talking to him, and her brother was killed in September 11th. So it wasn't.
He's like, heard it. It's all the coverage. Do you guys ever get that as they mean it as a compliment, but sometimes it hurts. We're like, I fall asleep to your podcast.
Oh, I never heard that, but that would be horrible.
People do it on because they have so much anxiety in their head that they'll put something on and it relaxes them to
Oh,
hear you
well,
talk.
I guess I'm not.
I think that if you have a problem with something, anger or I don't know, some kind of tick, the cognitive
Some kind
behavioral
of tick.
Well,
therapy,
phobias can be treated
phobia,
with.
yeah. I imagine there's some strategy to teach somebody to breathe or whatever it is so they don't lose their temper. So I'll give therapy. That's therapy. I give it that. I also I don't know, but the idea of just, you know, talking about your problems, I think, is healthy. But the idea that a therapist, you know, after from 7 years of education has some, you know, scientific way to listen to your problems and then tell you something that's going, I'm just very skeptical of
No,
that.
I don't think that's what it is, though. I think that
But there's
you-
also medication that is proven very helpful for people as well.
Yes, I believe in medication.
But I mean, I think it's a therapist, you know, gives a good therapist gives people tools to deal with the different things that they struggle with. I mean, I think oftentimes we're so wrapped up in our own narrative, it's very difficult to zoom out and be objective and see our way out of that path.
The problem is that you have 5 different therapists. They'll tell you 5 different things. It's just not scientific. I think that
And I keep
feels,
telling
it
you
feels
that not
good to talk about your problems.
that's
I believe
fine, but
that.
not everything has to be scientific to be valuable.
No, but I'm saying you can talk to a friend. I don't know. I don't listen. If therapy,
Well, a friend's probably not going to want to sit there and listen to you, and you probably won't necessarily want to confide in a friend all your deepest, darkest secrets. I mean, certainly Moses was forthcoming to us, but there's things he wouldn't tell us, but that he might tell a therapist.
fine. I don't
I'm
tell anybody not to go to therapy.
Yeah, I think it is. We people like Norm and I try to argue our way out of therapy of like, yeah, no one is gonna know exactly my situation, have the best thing. I do think it is conducive to, yes, to talk out your problems, say them out loud. A lot of thoughts, they don't hold their power anymore when you have to put it into words and say it to another human being. And personally, that's how I was deprogrammed, is just having to say it out loud to someone that I had a crush on. It was simple as that.
Now, your parents, they weren't the best parents, I guess, but they gave you that hair, and you have to.
It might go.
have-
I mean, my dad's got no hair and he's wearing bandanas and not pulling them off. He's not.
Well, I would just say, profit from the time that you have left.
I guess it comes from your mom's side. I think he had a great head of hair. My mom's grandpa.
Okay.
Even when he was embalmed, it was glistening.
I mean, you do have a joke in your act about that you grew up poor, but you look like an asshole rich kid. And I
Yeah.
think there's I think there's something to that.
Yeah, that is the immediate vibe. Even if I say it, be like, nah, not him. You
And your
bought that
your
story from
teeth
someone
are
dying
your
in a
teeth
gutter.
are too good. I
Teeth
think.
are too. One thing should be off. I should like mess up a tooth. I need a scar or something. But yeah,
That's a
it's
good title. Good teeth.
good teeth.
Good
I look like a
teeth.
Disney Channel villain. Yeah, this is a bad boy in the Disney Channel. But yeah, I noticed that this feeling. I mean, you learn a lot about yourself with how you're perceived the second you get on stage and what people think of you. And yeah, it's immediately like, oh, asshole. Like I can't yell immediately. I gotta be hey, hi.
Before we go, just because it's interesting, does anybody have any comments about this new Kanye West thing with the anti-Semitic remarks and Tucker Carlson covering from all that stuff?
Well, that's a pretty big topic to get into in the last couple of minutes.
People are trying to fall asleep. He just understands how to be famous and how to keep attention. So he'll just say whatever's the most litigious thing. And I don't think he's got a lot of morals behind it. I think it's really just someone flailing in the wind that knows how to be an entertainer, even if it means people hate him. At least people are talking about him.
Well, I mean, he certainly knows how to keep his name in the headlines. I don't know if he would go that far just to keep his name in the headline. I mean, it might just be that he's just not right in the head to say something that outrageous, going DEFCON 3 on the Jewish people. Sounds like somebody that's off his meds to me.
Okay, but people say that about Kanye all the time, that he's mentally ill. And my issue with that is that, I mean, just that well may be the case. I mean, I think he said himself that he's bipolar, but there are plenty of people who have mental illness that, I mean, you can't just dismiss everything he says because he's mentally ill.
Look, I'm sorry. I have a hard time taking black people seriously as anti-Semites. I just, for some reason.
Their struggle.
I like a white anti-Semite scares me, and a black one, I'm like, he doesn't mean it.
Well, Dan, you
I
should-
have I have noticed with my generation, it does become a cop out where we could just say, I'm mentally ill for just being shitty to people. And just acknowledging if a problem or acknowledging you struggle with depression is not a scapegoat. It's not an excuse. It's like, okay, yeah, but you still did the shitty thing.
Why
It's-
why
No,
why do you have a-
I want to say something in a moment of seriousness to Dan, that you should go look at the Anti-Defamation League heat map that shows which neighborhoods are where Jews are beaten up, and you would start taking that more seriously. The New York has the highest number of and the other blue cities, urban areas have the overwhelming majority of all the violent crimes committed, hate crimes committed against Jews, and more hate crimes are committed against Jews than any other group in America. So I know what you're saying, but don't dismiss it. It filters down, and it's dangerous. Having said that, I do forgive if somebody's mentally ill, they're mentally ill, and you know, I don't begrudge somebody every little joke about like I don't like they're teaching my kid Kwanzaa. I don't believe in Kwanzaa. I wish they give him Hanukkah. At least he might make some money. Like that I would need to know more about the person before I would decide that is some sort of hateful joke, because it could be just a joke.
He also said that black people can't be anti-Semites because they're Jews. So I don't know. He said a lot of things. I think that he put Candace Owens and himself in White Lives Matter shirts. He went on Tucker Carlson. I mean, I think Moses is right. He's doing the exact thing that is going to garner the strongest reaction.
Yeah, so Trump won. It's like everyone was talking about him. Now, the problem is, yes, it has real world consequences. Now, someone sees him talking about Jews and they feel more emboldened if they were the type of person to beat a Jewish person up on the street.
Yeah.
Basically, this heat
I mean,
map.
I think it's fucked up. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But
well, okay, let's so I can tell you about this thing about kids related to this about my son. So in Los Angeles this week, I don't know if you saw it, the head of the city council of Los Angeles had to resign because she referred to the adopted son of one of the white city council members, I think I'm getting the story correct, as this little monkey he carries around as an accessory. This is what the person of color Hispanic city council member said about the black adopted son of a white city council member, and she said it to other Hispanic council members and around there. So it seems to me with the expectation that this would be okay in that group, right? And it was just ironic. This was the same week that my son learned in school that only white people can be racist. So this is what they're teaching my son: only white people can be racist. And I just think that anybody who hates somebody because of the color of their skin, or I know Jews are not a race, but the Nazis consider them a race. But any of that is racism, and I just think it's intellectually unserious to think that the feeling is less wrong or less ugly because of the skin color of the person who.
I don't think it's less wrong or less ugly. I'm saying what scares me more on a visceral level, and what scares me more on a visceral level is a white person saying the same thing that Kanye said.
Why does that scare you more?
I think because I think two reasons. Number one, white people have proven quite adept at putting their hatred into practice.
Are you talking about the
I mean,
Nazis?
I'm talking about them in particular.
There you go again. Go ahead.
Although,
Real world example.
What's with you people? Get over the Nazis already. Go ahead.
and I don't know. I just because black people are fellow minorities and fellow persecuted people. For some reason, I don't think they're. I don't. It doesn't hit me the same way. Even if that's illogical, by the way, it doesn't hit me the same way.
Yeah, no, I listen. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Maybe that's right. You imagine a more powerful group, whatever it is. I mean, I I'm not one who tends to think that the Holocaust is happening in America because it happened in Nazi Germany. But I know people think that's very wrong of me to say that. But I think that, you know, intellectually, we should demand the same thing from everybody. Like, you know, the certain things are wrong, and certain kinds of reasoning is immoral, and certain kinds of beliefs are demonstrably illogical and hateful and unfair and can't be defended. And it shouldn't matter what color comes on, because in some way, what you're saying, Dan, I think emboldens this Hispanic city councilwoman to call this little boy a monkey. And yet, because of what you're kind of saying, this Hispanic woman thinks, well, the rules don't apply to me. I can call this little boy a monkey, right? Like, well, it's and we walk around thinking, oh, white people are the most racist people in the world because we've defined racism out of it, you know, as a white thing.
I didn't say that the most racist. I said what scares me on a visceral level.
No, I'm saying I'm zooming out from you. I'm saying, like, we're told, like my kid is being taught, only white people can be racist, which is, you know, I get it. Racism is hate plus power or whatever that thing is, but there is a danger to that, which is essentially taking the heat off people to say, well, I can do this. I'm a person of color. So, but Kanye West, if he's mentally ill, I would give him a pass. What are you going to do?
Well, I think I think the real takeaway is that.
Can I tell you something, Periel? My friend Wig, who died, right? He had manic depression.
Yeah, I know.
And he died not long ago. He committed suicide. And he and I were very, very close friends. When he had his manic episode, he held a bottle of ketchup over my head, and I thought he was going to kill me. Like, he was like this.
Oh, I thought he was pouring the ketchup on you. Like,
no.
I thought he was going to eat you.
Maybe ready to smash me over the head with it. And he was a 6'1" black guy, you know, black Puerto Rican guy. He could have killed me. And when he came down, or when he exited his episode, I did not hold that against him. That was his mental illness. So if I can forgive that, how could I then say, if somebody says something crazy about Jews, no, that's real? Like, you know, mental illness is mental illness. I'm not saying we should.
No, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think, you know, the thing about Kanye, and I personally do think that he is absolutely brilliant. But I think that, you know, what's difficult to watch is that he, you know, it's very self-destructive. It's destructive behavior. But, you know, on the other side, and I think I hold sort of an unpopular opinion here, I think that, you know, he doesn't play by the rules that society, or polite society in the entertainment industry, has put forth, is like, this is how you're supposed to act. And, you know, he goes on something like Tucker Carlson because somebody else won't have him. You know, he's not going to be welcome on the shows that are not, you know, I mean, I can't stand Tucker Carlson. I think he's.
I think the View would have Conway, but I think the villains here are Tucker.
No, I don't think they would. Tucker Carlson for sure.
Because he cut around the crazy.
Yeah,
you heard about it, to try to hide it.
He's disgusting. We know that.
And then Candace Owens, who must also know that he's kind of crazy. B is using him as a beard kind of to try to make her seem some, you know, more credible.
I have to confess to being attracted to Candace Owens.
And C, now she's going to have to explain away why all of a sudden it's okay for her to be associating with somebody who's making these anti-Semitic remarks. So she's in a bind. Anyway.
She went to my high school, by the way, Candace Owens, albeit about 20 years later.
Well, Mark Zuckerberg went to my high school.
Oh, did he?
Donald Trump went to my high school.
Moses?
I've never been to nobody. My family's been to my high school.
Question. Moses, when you see Donald Trump, does it remind you of a cult?
Yes, it does. His people. When they would do those videos of outside, yes. but the guilty feeling is the first visceral feeling is a feeling of jealousy. It's like, oh, you got what we never could. You got success. And then it's, of course, all the hate, and this is embarrassing, and this is stupid. But yeah, definitely QAnon. Absolutely. Extreme beliefs that are acted on. Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of organized religion has a lot of cult.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, obviously, it's a fine line between cult and religion, But
Well, you get successful enough and you're no longer a cult. You are a mainstream religion. And I think Scientology is getting to that point. I mean, for the past 10 years, everyone's like, Scientology is crazy, crazy, crazy. And then slowly there's going to be a new crazy thing. There's QAnon, which is for people who can't afford Scientology. And Scientology is just going to become another Christianity or Mormon. There'll still be jokes about it, but it won't be, oh, this guy's a Scientologist, immediate laugh.
Yeah, well, you wonder if all religions at some point didn't have to start with a lie. I mean, I don't know. I guess it could just bubble up through legends or something. But I mean, the Mormon religion certainly started with somebody bullshitting, right?
Absolutely.
Joseph Smith.
And it's harder than ever to start one now because everything is recorded and on record. You could just, back then you go out to the woods, and I saw these plates and God said this, and you didn't need like, okay, well, open up your phone. Let's see where, if you were geotagged, if you were even in the woods then. was there a cell phone tower that crossed? You could have been hearing this. Are you mentally ill? Yeah, they just have the language for it, and they had the benefit of no record.
Well, also in the old
and what's really difficult to grapple with is that the Mormons are successful, they're decent, they're nice, they're beautiful. Like it's hard to argue. It's not an oppressive cult, like I mean, maybe maybe the polygamy aspect of it, my part, but you look at the Romneys, whatever it is, and I mean, I've met a lot of Mormons. I had a Mormon in my family one time. It seems to have some pretty okay results.
Well, I'm going to tell you that my best.
You know who's a Mormon? I think is the founder of JetBlue and Breeze.
Look at Ryan Hamilton. You don't get nicer than Ryan Hamilton.
First of all,
Breeze now flying daily out of Westchester County to LA.
My best friend.
You talk about convenience if you live in Westchester.
Earl, if you're going to talk bad about Mormonism, I'm going to have to wish you a good day, sir.
Listen to me. My best girlfriend is a former Mormon missionary. And
what was her position?
Well, that depends on where she was positioned in front of the bishop at said time. And there, I cannot tell you the number of sinister stories. And if you ever do get around to reading my first book, you can read all about it because it's some crazy fucked up shit that's going on in Mormonism.
Anyway, why don't we save this for another episode? It's a big topic. I think it'd be a nice place to put a bow on.
Let's just end on a 2-state solution. Do you think Palestine and Israel is a light note to leave us on?
Well, we certainly talk about that. But Moses, you're on tonight.
Palestine?
Yeah. Israel, Palestine is how we're going to close out. Yeah. 3 shows tonight.
Tonight you have 3?
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah.
On a weekday?
It's the best. Yeah, it's the hands down.
I only get
best
one
place.
on a weekday. Maybe when they open up the new room at the McDonald's.
Well, I've been away for like a month, so.
Sometimes Esty will do that.
And you're leaving tomorrow, you said.
Yeah, I'm leaving. I don't know if I could say it. I'm shooting a sequel to a very popular comedy movie that didn't do well by the time it came out, and then retroactively became popular. I'm getting on a plane tomorrow.
Well, how big is the part?
It's the lead, one of the leads.
Wait a minute, you don't even need my fucking book deal. The whole time I thought
the movie industry's in the toilet.
Moses needed money.
I'm getting paid in like a Foot Locker gift card. It is not what it used to be.
Well, I'm sure you're getting paid decently, but wow.
The poster for this movie is in the main room on the back wall.
The main room of what?
Of the Comedy Cellar, the original McDougal Street room. The poster, the number 1 of this movie.
Oh, is it half baked?
Yeah, I can't confirm nor deny.
Okay.
Legally.
Well, I told you Moses was going places. I wasn't lying. But
I mean, yeah, this is the best place in the world. I'm still nervous to perform here because everyone does.
It must be very satisfying that you made it out. Like that you came from such a low point. Like it must be extra gratifying, I would think. I wouldn't know from personal experience, but to have been where you were. And now to be starring in a film, and That has to be. I would have might have been a little bit extra. I always wanted to come from nothing and succeed.
Yeah, I mean,
And I've accomplished neither.
Yeah, we gotta go. We gotta go. And,
All right, podcast
Periel,
of Comedy
Periel,
Cellar.
You should ask Lou to cut out the first part or much of it that we're treading water, waiting for Moses, and maybe whatever Moses has publicly available in the public domain, he can put a little the kind of stuff they would play on Sirius to edit in
Sure.
little Moses.
Well, that's
stuff.
up to Lou. Podcast at comedycellar.com. Questions, comments, and suggestions. We thank Moses Storm. We wish him luck. In his movie.
Special out on HBO called Trash White.
Good Lord,
came out.
This kid's got everything.
Yeah, it's the first thing I directed, wrote, and I built the entire set for it. And it's on HBO Max right now. It's called Trash White.
Trash White instead of white trash. Trash White. Okay, Moses Storm. Thank you for coming. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.